Are you ready to live a more free, healthy, and abundant life? FoodForestAbundance.com is a community of passionate, freedom-loving people who want to build a free, healthy, and abundant society for generations to come. They're focused on creating a decentralized food supply by setting up forests on underutilized lawn space around the world. And this is just the beginning. They offer landscape design, blueprints, installation, maintenance tips, and a whole lot more. In these uncertain times, you want the peace of mind of having food security right outside your front door. They plan on growing food forest in every community, providing healthier food free from the supply chain. To learn more, visit FoodForestAbundance.com. Use the code FOOD22 and save 5%. FoodForestAbundance.com.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome, everybody, to the current state of WWE. Back this week with Anthony DeMarco, as always, and it's great to have you back on the show. We're going to dive into all things this week in WWE and kind of a more of a focused week in review, if you will, with Anthony DeMarco. So welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Not too bad, my man. Talking a bit off air. I'm going through a move right now, and I know you went through it a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year. Can't remember exactly, but I think everyone who's gone through it will know that it takes a massive piece out of your life, and once it's done, you never want to do it again. But aside from that, I'm great. How about you?
Yeah. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how's the play? I mean, it was anybody that's moved. I'm not trying to make this into a moving show, but it was 2 years ago I moved, and I remember just it is a all-consuming. You realize how much crap you have trying to figure things, logistics, paperwork, money. Like, it's a complete, show. I get it. It's stressful. Money. You're trying to do 100 things. You have work to do. I get it. So anybody, like you said, that has moved can attest to that. And so once you do this, brother, just don't ever move again, right? Like, you're done, right? So.
Yeah, which begs the question as to why RK Bro keeps insisting on moving from show to show. Like, you would think that they would get tired of all that moving once in a while, right?
Nice transition. Yeah, I think exactly right. But at the same time, all they have to do is just get on a plane, go to a different hotel, and travel on one more day a week than they need to. But yeah, at the same time, though, as we've been discussing over the last several weeks and months at this point, is the brand split, easy for me to say, is kind of dead. There's so many things that they have done at this point. The announcers aren't covering for anybody. It's just accepted. Nobody calls anybody on any quarterly invitationals. There's no wild card rule. It's just out the window. They want to have their draft, but also not have the draft at the same time. It's the most bizarre thing. You and I have covered it. But yeah, with RK Bro, we can start there. So this past week on SmackDown, we got RK Bro just throughout the show trying to get the Usos to finally accept their challenge to the tag team title unification match. And at the end of the show, they finally accepted, and we also had Riddle knee Roman in the face and then quickly exit the ring as Randy and Riddle were walking up the ramp, and that ended SmackDown. That tag title unification match, as we know, is happening next week on SmackDown, but I don't know about you. I smell a bit of something's not right. Like something's fishy, right? I think probably Roman's interfering, causing this to continue to Hell in a Cell. But what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they'll actually have it a clean finish next week, or do you think it's something that probably gets extended to Hell in a Cell?
Well, first off, I'm going to say that in terms of people moving from show to show, it seems as though that if you are in the bloodline or involved in any which way storyline-wise with the bloodline, then you're exempt from the brand split. That's what it kind of seems like. If you're Roman Reigns or the Usos or Paul Heyman or you're feuding with any one of them, you're allowed to jump from show to show without any consequence. As for the unification match, I don't think it's going to end. I don't even know if they're going to finally go through with it, because I think that they know that once the unification of those titles end, they can no longer push forward with the RK Bro Bloodline storyline. And I think that they realize that they have something here, and they have something that isn't stale in regards to Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. And obviously they have Drew McIntyre right in the back door, kind of waiting for Roman Reigns. It seems like eventually Cody Rhodes will get there. But in the interim, I think the feud between RK Bro and the Usos, and by extension Roman Reigns, has given them something to work with in the interim, where they don't have to rush into a match with Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns for the championship. It gives them more time to build Cody up for Roman Reigns, maybe more towards the Rumble or maybe WrestleMania next year. And I think if you pull the trigger and unify the titles on SmackDown next week, then it's just like, well, then where are you going to go with it? Then RK Bro goes back to doing whatever they're doing, because I would assume that the Usos would be the ones that would come out on the winning end of that. And then you're kind of back to square one. Like, we kind of saw that with Roman Reigns following his victory at WrestleMania over Brock Lesnar. He won the Unified Championship, and then for a few weeks it was like he was spinning his tires, and it was only until they got this feud going with RK Bro and the Usos that we started seeing Roman Reigns in kind of like a breath of fresh air type of way. Obviously, Drew McIntyre's got involved. We had the Bloodline defeat that group at Backlash. But I just think the longer that they stretch this out, without making it go stale, because after a point there is a law of diminishing returns, like with everything, but the longer they're able to keep this storyline going in a non-stale fashion, I think it's a win for WWE.
And this has to be the longest promoted tag team title match of all time. And not on purpose, because we all know last second, whether it was Fox executives, somebody decided that they needed to have Roman and Drew in this match, and that it's bigger than the unification match. Therefore, it was a non-title, and we know the Bloodline won. It seems like they've been promoting this now for like 2 months, and at the same time, it sounds like I'm complaining, but I'm really kind of not. We're for once in our probably professional wrestling viewer careers, if that's a thing, we have all been viewing or watching this promotion for a tag team title match for the longest ever. I mean, like probably 8 weeks or more. I mean, that we have been hearing about it. It's been rumored. It happened. It was supposed to happen, as we know, at Backlash. Didn't happen. Now it's happening next week, which will likely go into a schmozz finish, and it gets extended to Hell in a Cell, where we get the actual finish of this program. And I actually think it's deserving of Inside the Cell alongside Cody and Seth on Raw. If you're going to have one from SmackDown and one from Raw, which is what they do. Now, normally they have a women's match to balance out, with a men's match. At least in the last few years, they've done that. But I would argue against that this year, because I don't think any of the women's programs are deserving of Inside the Cell. If you're going to pick two programs, it's the one that you've been promoting for 8 weeks or so with the tag title unification match, which I think all four men could have really a potential match of the year inside of the Cell if they go that road. And it's much more deserving than anything going on with the women. Not that I don't want the women in there, but if you're just talking objectively, they don't have as good of any good programs going on, at least deserving of the Cell. And of course, you got Cody and Seth, which we'll talk about a little bit later on the other side on Raw. But to finish my point, I think that this program right now, it's been going on a long time, yet we haven't got the match yet, and all of us still want the match, and it does feel fresh because all four men they've got great chemistry on the mic. They've got insanely good chemistry inside the ring. You know that any match they put on, they could be half asleep, and you know that their match is going to be at least good. Good is like the floor of what it could be. I mean, it has the potential to be 4.5, 5-star match, and I think we could get that at Hell in a Cell. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Well, of course, and it's because it's not like a typical tag team, right? Like a tag team feud, rather, because on one side, you have the Usos, who you could make the case that in the last decade, they're the best tag team. Like, I guess most people would say New Day, but from a subjective standpoint, I would say the Usos. I don't know about you. And on the other side, you have a team that's built with Randy Orton as half of the team. arguably the biggest legacy star the company has on a full-time basis right now. So this isn't just a typical, tag team feud like we saw between the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders 2 years ago, challenging each other to obstacle courses. This is a serious star-studded main event caliber tag team program. And I'm not comparing it directly to this, but similar to like when we saw the two-man power trip up against the Brothers of Destruction. And it's really cool when you see two teams of this magnitude go head to head. And again, and I think the biggest, or maybe not the biggest, but one of the best byproducts of this is the fact that it's allowed Roman Reigns to kind of take a backseat. That, a few weeks ago I was coming on here and saying it was too much, there was too much Roman Reigns. And recently he's still been around, but it hasn't been all Roman Reigns all the time. But it's still been attached to him in some way. And I do like the fact that he has his cousins doing his bidding. And that at least because now it's meant to be this way in the storyline, all roads kind of lead to Roman Reigns. And in some way, in the past we've criticized that, but now that they've kind of integrated it in the storyline that he is kind of like the chief and the king of WWE, it does work. So I think it's been a cool mix of like still keeping Roman Reigns relevant and not letting us forget about him, but keeping him in the back when kind of like in the shadows where it's just like, okay, when's Roman going to come out? Okay, when's he going to come? Is he going to get involved here? And I just think it's been a good way to, not give too much of a good thing. And like I said, you have a star-studded tag team on one side, of arguably the most over tag team right now, anchored by Randy Orton on the other. And it's just been a really, really good mix. I think that they've really hit it out of the park so far with this storyline.
That's probably the one part of this that people aren't realizing, because it's happening so subtly that Roman Reigns has taken a bit of a backseat, and that's totally fine to this story because Drew wasn't even on SmackDown, and I'm cool with that too. To me, there's no problem that Drew and Roman, that program is going the very slow burn road. And that's totally fine with me. I'm all for that because we know this is going to be a very long program. I wouldn't be surprised if even after SummerSlam, we're possibly still talking about it. I think it ends at SummerSlam personally. You and I have talked about that, I think, in the last couple of shows. But I have no problem with Roman. Again, he's there, but he's not the focus of what is going on in the ring. And that's cool. And it feels good for him to kind of take a breath and let the Usos shine. Let the Usos actually come to the forefront and lead the story. And when is the last time that the tag team titles have felt this important? I can't think about the last time that the tag titles have felt this important. I mean, you brought up the two-man power trip of Austin and Triple H, probably one of the most underutilized stories of all time and got cut way too short with the Brothers of Destruction in the early 2000s. The tag team titles felt super important there. Of course, the Hardy Boys, when they were in their prime, Edge and Christian, Dudley's. Like, outside of that, I really don't know when the tag titles have felt this important and have been a consistent main event topic ending shows on Fox. And so, to me, this feels fresh because this match hasn't happened yet. They're going to get a great match. The good in promos, as we just said. And so you have something fresh with the tag titles being the forefront of something, but it feels like it is. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, WWE is just trying to make this a thing. It is a thing. It is a thing, and it's something that all of us are looking forward to that, I think is going to lead to Riddle becoming a huge star, which he already is. I mean, he has been one of the biggest success stories, I think, by accident coming up to NXT, from NXT to WWE. He originally obviously was not in this character or doing what he's doing now, and him and Randy originally were scheduled to break up quickly, and it was going to end with a match at last year's SummerSlam with those two. Of course, we fast forward 18 months, and here we are, and they're one of the most successful tag teams in modern history, I think, and one of the more I think star-studded tag teams that we've seen in a while. It's just so much fun to see this happen, and for Roman to take a back seat. Drew's going to come, but it's going to be kind of here and there, building to a match. I don't even think they're going to face each other at Hell in a Cell, personally. I don't know if Roman's going to be at Hell in a Cell. I haven't heard anything.
Well, and I think that I saw a report that they're trying to make Roman Reigns the new Brock Lesnar, in the sense that he only kind of shows up when he wants to. And I know a lot of people hated that, like, let's say Brock Lesnar, oh my God, that's funny.
I've never heard that. That's actually really funny. I want to make that like a sound drop.
Brock Lesnar, easy enough for me to say, circa 2014, 2015, where he was an absentee champion. I know everyone hated that, but I don't know about you, but it kind of made the championship feel a bit more important. And not maybe to the extent of Brock Lesnar to where he just wouldn't be on television for a month or 2 months on end, but in the sense of, like, if you're the world champion, should you have to wrestle every Monday Night Raw / Friday Night SmackDown? Should you have to defend your championship at every B-level pay-per-view? No, I think that you should be at least on 3 out of 4 shows in terms of Raw and SmackDown. But if all you have to do is come and cut a promo, I don't think that's a bad thing if you're the champion. And if that's the way they're going with Roman Reigns, I think that it would be good. Like I said, following WrestleMania, a couple weeks on here, where I said, him being a dual champion, being on Raw, being on SmackDown, if they push forward with this and he's main eventing both shows and wrestling on both shows and house shows and pay-per-views because he has to perform double duty, it's going to get old really fast. But not to say that they were listening to me. Obviously, they weren't. But it's cool to see that they kind of realize, like, okay, we got to rein this in. We can't just throw Roman everywhere all the time. And now you're kind of still having him relevant, but through association with the Usos. You see him having interactions with Orton and Riddle. Obviously, he has a bit of a history with Orton. Orton is a legit bona fide main event star on his own. And then they're doing the slow burn with Drew McIntyre. And I agree. I don't think that they're going to go to this right away because, in my opinion, I don't even know if they want to do this 100%. Like, you've seen them kind of test the waters when Drew has come out, gone face to face with Roman, when they started brawling. Okay, do the fans want this? Do they not? And like I said, and we talked about 2 weeks ago, after Drew and now seemingly Cody Rhodes, who else do they have? A returning Rock? So if you only have these two guys, aside from a returning Rock, they don't have anyone else in the queue waiting for Roman Reigns. So if you only have Drew and you only have Cody Rhodes, lined up for Roman Reigns to face against him. I think I just reiterated the wrong names, but Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns for the next, let's say, 10 months or so, then you might as well squeeze all the juice you have possible at your disposal out of RK Bro. Because who knows, maybe this could lead to a Matt Riddle and Roman Reigns match for the championship at Money in the Bank. Maybe it could be Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. Obviously, I would never expect either of those two to dethrone Roman Reigns, but it's given you numerous options here in the interim so you don't have to burn through Drew right away and you don't have to burn through Cody Rhodes right away. And like I've said several times now, in the meantime, you've kind of let Roman Reigns slide into the shadows a bit and make the fans want to see him more. And, absentee champion or not, I think sometimes that's the best course of action to make the championships feel special.
The fact that Roman's not going to be here as much, I love. And not because I'm not as tired of the act as some people are. It is starting to wear on me, no doubt about it. And I think WWE's recognized this. But I also think for Roman's longevity, he's a made man. He's paid his dues. He doesn't need to really be doing house shows at this point. He doesn't have to, and for his safety and longevity to preserve him and his health mentally and physically, you'd want him to do less dates. I mean, and if I was Roman, I think I would want to do less dates too, and also venture into other things, other projects. That's how a lot of people get their foot in the door at Hollywood. And I don't blame them if that's the road he's going. But for WWE, I think that seeing him less makes it more special when he shows up. And if he goes a Brock Lesnar schedule, that's going to piss some people off. There's no doubt about it that some people are going to be angry about that, and he's hoarding both championships. And we've heard the same story, and I was on board for that too, to a certain point with Brock, that he's an absentee champion, he's never here. But with Roman Reigns, I don't think he'll take a full Brock Lesnar schedule. I think he'll still do at least even show up at even the B pay-per-views. Maybe he does runs in for interference to help the Usos, or whatever. Just because he doesn't have a title match at those pay-per-views doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to show up in some capacity, because Roman Reigns is their biggest star. And I think right now with Roman Reigns, you can't go wrong with him taking more time off and doing fewer dates. It's going to help the storyline, because I think people are wearing thin on Roman Reigns in terms of just like, it's the same act. We hear the complaints. I'm sure WWE does too. And I have no issue with him doing fewer dates, because it's going to help everyone involved and allow other stories to come to the forefront other than just who's Roman Reigns facing next. But with Drew, as we mentioned, I think that you're going to have the story where Roman is ducking and dodging Drew over the next, month, where he finally has to face him, maybe at the pay-per-view before, maybe Money in the Bank, because that's going to be in a stadium. That's in a stadium, Allegiant Stadium, I believe, where last year's SummerSlam was. So I would imagine that at the next event, the Premium Live event, after Hell in a Cell, Roman is going to be forced in some way, somehow, contractually, to defend his championship or championships. We still don't know if it's going to be defended separately, together. We'll find out. Against Drew. That'll be, I think, their first meeting at Money in the Bank, concluding probably at SummerSlam.
So do you think, this is kind of off topic, but do you think now, like, this is kind of the coronation that Money in the Bank is now part of the, I guess, Big Five pay-per-views?
Well, I think they're trying to make it a thing. I mean, the fact that they're putting it in a stadium is, number one, that they've never done that. They're trying to do multiple stadium shows throughout the year. And also, and this is a story, I'm sure if you watch the Newswire, as most of us do, that if you're listening to a wrestling podcast, you probably follow wrestling news about backstage stuff, everything. That Cody Rhodes, the promotion for the Money in the Bank event, Cody Rhodes said in that promotion video that they've run many times now, that the winner of the Money in the Bank match gets a championship opportunity in the main event of WrestleMania. I mean, that wasn't something that they accidentally put in there. That's what he said. Go back and listen. Anybody that's listening to this, you haven't seen it, go watch the promo video for the Money in the Bank event. Cody Rhodes, who's narrating the whole thing, that's what he said. And you'd imagine, like, oh, well, that must be a mistake. They'll correct it. No, they've ran it for multiple weeks now. So it's clearly something that maybe they've changed with Money in the Bank. I'm not a fan of that. If Money in the Bank is truly what that promotional video says, and they've run it now for multiple weeks, then I'm not on board for that, because that's what the Royal Rumble's for. And it takes a lot of the spontaneity and fun out of the Money in the Bank briefcase winner if they could cash it at any time. That's the whole fun. That's the whole point. So if they are changing the rules, and it sounds like they are based on that promo video, then to me, it completely defeats the purpose of the Money in the Bank briefcase, which is any time you can cash it in. And, they said it's the main event of WrestleMania. Again, to me, you're strangle holding the Royal Rumble winner, which that's the point of that match. And you're also taking away a potential person that is not a Money in the Bank or Royal Rumble winner that you're like, oh, they could be in the main event. Well, now you've taken up two of those main event spots with two people are going to be in it. A lot of the mystery, I think, is taken out of the WrestleMania main event. So I don't know. Did you catch that with the Cody Rhodes promo video?
I did. I hope he meant that, like, if you so choose, you could put yourself in the main event of WrestleMania. Like, the thing that came to my head, maybe because I'm just refusing to believe that that's actually what they're going to do with Money in the Bank, but I was thinking in my head, like they're booking Cody Rhodes probably to be, like, the top babyface in the company, right? That's what I would assume.
Yep.
So I'm saying to myself, like, maybe he's going to win, and then he's going to be the first guy to be like, I'm going to cash this in the main event of WrestleMania. But then what the hell is the Royal Rumble for? Because then it's just like, okay, well, then are you going back to two world champions? Mm-hmm. And I have read some things online that they're thinking about going back to two world champions. And I guess that was another segue that I would have for you, like, as I answer your question with a question. Do you think that Monday Night Raw, because I still equate Roman Reigns to more SmackDown, even though he's technically both champions, I just think of him more of a SmackDown guy. Do you think Monday Night Raw has suffered at all without a stable world championship? And do you think that they have enough talent on Monday Night Raw to put back its own world title.
So I think they have enough talent to do it. I mean, again, Seth Rollins, for God's sakes, how is he not a champion? It's really criminal. It's unbelievable. And yeah, so yes, I do think they have it. The guy's name is Seth Rollins. That's number one. Number two, I don't think that you're going to have. I don't think that they'll split the titles yet. I think they'll get there. But what was your first question about the? It wasn't about the world titles. It was about Cody. What was it?
So do you think that like Cody could win the Money in the Bank and then say I'm cashing this in at WrestleMania?
I think he could. I would advise against it though. I really would. Again, I hope that's what they meant and not what they literally said. Was that somebody could win this match and cash it in at the main event of WrestleMania. But that's not what they said. It was very clear that the winner gets a shot in the main event, a title shot in the main event of WrestleMania. It was very clear that it was not implied. That's what it is. So I really hope that that's not the case, because I'll be very disappointed in the Money in the Bank if that's what they're going to do, because that's the complete opposite. That's the whole point of the Money in the Bank is for that not to happen. So yeah.
I think the entire, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't believe this word isn't coming to me, but the whole uniqueness, I guess, of the Money in the Bank is that it could happen at any time. It is so damn predictable. And WWE always likes to tell us that anything could happen in WWE. So if you take that unpredictability out of Money in the Bank, then why the hell are you even doing it? Like the entire reason the whole concept, in my opinion, got over was, for one, you were getting a multi-man ladder matches, and those are always pretty much slam dunks, much like the Intercontinental Championship ladder matches they had for 2 years at Mania, and I don't know why they strayed away from that, but that's a completely different other discussion. But it's also because the first time that Money in the Bank was cashed in and Edge won his first ever world championship, it was one of the most iconic swerves, I guess if you want to call it that, of all time. And now you're just always constantly waiting for that next cash-in. You're waiting for that next cash-in. And sometimes it flops, sometimes it doesn't, but it is still always something that you have in your back pocket if you really want to, wow the crowd or something, or help get someone over specifically as a heel. It's kind of like a get out jail free card if you have a guy win a world title and it doesn't work. Kind of like with Big E. He won the world championship, wasn't a great run, but then you could be like, oh, well, he won Money in the Bank, so that's it. Or you could have really good cash-ins, like Edge the first ever time or the third ever time when he did it on The Undertaker, or Dean Ambrose in 2016. But if you take that entire aspect out of it, I just don't know what's different about Money in the Bank than the Royal Rumble.
Nothing. I mean, nothing, because that's the contract that is in that briefcase. It is implied that you can cash it in within 1 year. And besides, it takes all the spontaneity out of it, but you're also telling me that WWE is going to know the main event of WrestleMania for sure 9 months in advance, when we hear about constant Raw rewrites and Vince tearing up scripts and things changing on the fly. You think that really WWE is going to want to stranglehold themselves, handcuff themselves for 9 months, when in 4 months they're like, oh crap, we probably should have done this. Then all of a sudden, now what do you do? I mean, you've already said this person's in the main event of WrestleMania because they won Money in the Bank. You're also, I think, we just talked about Rumble, you're taking away the specialness of the Rumble, because the Rumble is exactly for that purpose. We don't need essentially two Rumbles, one with the briefcase and one you just toss somebody over the rope to win. I'm not a big proponent of it, as I've said. But the first question you asked a minute ago, that I just remember what it was, about Raw suffering with no world champion. I think Raw would have suffered more and would be suffering more had the tag titles not been so hot as they are right now. If they weren't as hot as they are with RK Bro, then I think it would be much more of a glaring problem than it otherwise would have been. Because right now the tag team titles are the main event. You actually feel like the tag titles are worthy of the main event, not just because they want him to be because it feels deserving of that. So, if the tag titles weren't in such a good place, I think it would feel a lot worse. But you can only hold that for so long before you're like, okay, we need somebody who's the top guy here. Either that or just officially end the brand split. They need a top guy to hold the championship. You can't do the tag team thing forever. I suppose you could elevate the Intercontinental Championship and United States Championship, on Raw anyway. I mean, you could, but again, that only gets you so far. But before you look around, you're like, all right, well, where's our world champion? Eventually you're going to hit that.
Yeah, and I think like that's what you're kind of missing here is that one title to, kind of be like the carrot dangling at the end or the light at the end of the tunnel for any of these guys working their way up the ranks, because at the end of the day, why are all these guys there? You know what I mean? Like, you're there to win world championships. You're there to be the best. Why do the Yankees play baseball? To win the World Series. It's the same concept. And I think that if you don't have that world title there, and I know that technically Roman Reigns has the championship, and I'm still not sure if it's going to become one world title or if he could still exclusively defend one. Have they, ironed that out, any of those details? Or are we still left in the dark on that?
I think we're still left in the dark on that. I mean, they have not told us outright what those details are. I mean, that's what makes me so hesitant to believe that they're going to back themselves into a corner with this potential Money in the Bank rule change. So no, they haven't ironed those out. But before, I know we're running against the clock here, but I want to ask you, switch gears very quickly to the women's side of things and ask you about Ronda Rousey. Now, this past week, she had a match against Raquel Rodriguez. She beat Raquel. They shook hands and they left, and that was great. I mean, it's a kind of a nice way to give a rub to Raquel. I get it. But Ronda Rousey this past week, as she has done on another time or two that I can recall, called the SmackDown Women's Championship the SmackDown Championship belt. I think that's what she said. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's what somebody who doesn't watch wrestling calls the championship. Like, if you're bringing somebody in that doesn't watch wrestling and you're trying to explain what's going on and what the championships are, they'll point at the TV and they'll be like, is that the SmackDown Championship belt? Like, it's such a amateur way to me of describing something. It's like, and whether it's intentional or not on Rousey's part, if it's intentional, then that is just flat out respecting the championship. And it's also a signal to me and maybe to others that she feels she's above having to say it's the women's championship. Or number two, she just can't put those three words together. I don't know what it is. Either it's a brain cramp or it's intentional. Either one is not good. I don't know why she feels the need to try to rename the championship. I'm not a big fan of that. She to me I want her gone from WWE. Either that or turn her heel. I mean, I think she could be an amazing heel. I don't know why they haven't decided to go that road. Because maybe it's her fragile ego. She doesn't want to get, her little tummy will hurt if people boo her, which is what happened the last time when she was babyface and people started to turn on her. But I don't like her. She comes across arrogant, entitled. She's changing the name of championships. She's not good on promos. She's to me a heel just waiting to be birthed. And I don't know. Do you feel the same about Rousey? I mean, we don't have a clear opponent for her yet either.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. I get why they're pushing her. She's obviously a household name in, I guess, combat sports world. But at the same time, I don't know why they just don't follow the formula like they did with Brock. Like, if Brock would have come back as a babyface in 2012 and been very part-time and get booked so strongly, like, I don't imagine it would have worked. It took them, a decade to turn Brock babyface? Quite literally, after he kind of just became a legacy star by osmosis. And it's waiting for them. You have the formula that you already ran through with Brock Lesnar, a guy who came from MMA, well, originally WWE, but then came back over from MMA, works a very part-time schedule, clearly doesn't want to be there, like Rousey gives off that impression sometimes. And it worked with Brock. As much as people hated it, you hated to love him. And I think that Ronda is fairly good in the ring. I thought that she adapted pretty fast to it. And she certainly is a good athlete. But in terms of her being a babyface, like, it just doesn't work. I thought it worked in the beginning. I thought it was okay. But as soon as that whole nonsense with Becky Lynch happened and that weird booking all the way to WrestleMania 35, she deserves to be a heel, and she needs to be a heel, and I think people want to boo her. I don't think people want her gone entirely, except for you, obviously, but because I do think that she is a good in-ring worker, especially how quickly she picked it up. But this, like, fake kind of babyface gimmick she has going on is not working. And I'm waiting for when Bayley comes back and they try and push Bayley as a heel against her, because that is just going to absolutely flip upside down in terms of crowd reaction. For me, you turn her heel and you have something here, because people will hate her, but because of her work in the ring, I think it will work. But as long as they keep pushing forward with her as a babyface, I just think it's kind of unbearable to watch at times.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. It feels very much like Roman Reigns when he was a babyface, and we were all like, "Turn him heel. It's there. Do it." And what happened? He turned into one of the best heels that the company's seen in nearly 20 years. I mean, I think the last time I had a heel this good was maybe Triple H, when he was world champion. I really believe that. I mean, we've had some good heels over the years, but I really would say it's been about 20 years since we've had a heel this good, and for this long, and a championship run that's been this long as well. So, and I think Ronda Rousey could maybe not be as successful because she's part-time, but I don't think this babyface, it doesn't feel authentic. It feels she's playing a part. I think that she truly has inside of her some kind of animosity towards wrestling fans. It's, she is good in the ring, and that's fine, but everything else I can't stand about her. I mean, like, everything else I can't stand. I can't stand her mannerisms. I can't stand the way she whispers on the mic. She doesn't have a good cadence or volume when she's cutting a promo. It's like she's whispering to the person in class next to her. She has no confidence on the mic. And I will say this, I know promos aren't easy. Oh, you do it. I'm not saying they're easy, but you got everything else. Just at least up the volume, Rhonda, for God's sakes. I don't like her facial expressions, her kind of like her just the way that her aura. I don't like it. Screaming ego, and it's perfect for a heel run. I don't know why they haven't done it. The crowd is lukewarm with her. I don't think they're fully behind her. The nostalgia of having her around has worn off. And I think she would be a perfect heel. And like you said, when Bayley comes back, which I believe is probably going to be the next real opponent that she faces, maybe all the way to SummerSlam, we'll see. Bayley is very close to returning, and maybe she waits, maybe she doesn't, but it's Bayley versus Ronda at a big event. Maybe they do it at Money in the Bank. And I think that if they get Ronda and Bayley in the same ring in a stadium, it's going to be hilarious to watch, because people are going to be welcoming back Bayley with open arms, and they are going to completely destroy Ronda Rousey. I think people would absolutely side with Bayley, because she's the one that grew up from NXT. She's homegrown. She's not technically a mega star like Ronda Rousey is. She doesn't have the sense of entitlement like Ronda does. It's going to be hilarious to watch if they put those two in a stadium, main event for the women, and try to put Bayley as a heel and Ronda as a babyface. It's going to be fun to watch if they try that. I hope they do.
Quickly before we close it out, I don't know if you saw this, but apparently Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of Monday Night Raw, like, for real.
I did not see that. What was the reason?
Apparently. I just glazed over it quickly because it came on my feed. I got notification because of it. But I think it's something along the lines that Sasha Banks wasn't happy with creative, and Vince wouldn't change whatever he had planned. And she walked out, and Naomi went with her as kind of like a show of solitude with the group. But apparently it's not storyline.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I believe you. I just, sometimes those things are, there's a small chance it's a work, it's a small chance. I mean, I'll take that at face value and, say that that's real. But I did not know that, and we'll have to see if next week that it's brought into storyline. The second you hear it in storyline, obviously it was all just a ruse. But if they don't, and you see them drop the belts quickly, then we'll know that was real. I definitely keep an eye on that. So, all right, well, very good. Yeah, we'll wrap things up here. Did you have any final comments or things you want to share before we say goodbye?
No, just I guess the one thing I'd say is that I am feeling a lot more optimistic and less sick of the Roman Reigns bloodline angle. So I'll give WWE credit there that they've done a good job of making me want more. And sometimes less is more, and you can't just shove something down people's throats and force them to want it. They've made that kind of sounded weird, eh? But I am. Oh my God, that kind of set me off track. But anyway, it's just nice to see that they've taken a path with Roman Reigns and the bloodline where you're left wanting more for a bit. Because for a while there, especially after WrestleMania, it was kind of just like bloodline. And after a while, as good as the storyline is, you kind of start to get sick and tired of it. But they've gone about it with a fresh set of opponents that each and every week, even though it's centered around the bloodline, it isn't all about Roman Reigns, at which point you're left wanting to see Roman Reigns more. Exactly.
No, and they are on the right path. It's starting to feel a little bit better now that Roman is actually kind of playing second fiddle, which, that in and of itself it has completely changed the whole feel of the group, because the Usos are in a program where Roman's not really, he's with Drew, but it's not really full force yet. And yeah, I agree. I mean, just with Roman, even if he's not there for like a couple of weeks, something like taking a couple 2-3 weeks off is going to do him wonders and do the audience wonders of not to try to miss him, but just to make it feel fresh by him not just being there. His absence will make it feel fresh. So yeah, I'm with you there, and I think that most fans are as well. So, all right, well, I think that does it for this evening, and I really appreciate you coming on, and I think we can all say, good luck with the move, and of course, if you have social media, you can plug that and your show.
Yeah, obviously, every week here, usually on Fridays, sometimes early Saturdays, WWE Retro drops. Last week or earlier this week, depending on when you're listening to the show, I had the review of WrestleMania 20. Personally, one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. I know you were there in attendance, so I'm sure you could speak to that better than me. And as always, get me on Twitter at @ADamarco25.
All right, very good. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Like I said, good luck with the move. It is mentally and physically exhausting. So yeah, definitely just take it easy if you can.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to our show next week.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Are you ready to live a more free, healthy, and abundant life? FoodForestAbundance.com is a community of passionate, freedom-loving people who want to build a free, healthy, and abundant society for generations to come. They're focused on creating a decentralized food supply by setting up forests on underutilized lawn space around the world. And this is just the beginning. They offer landscape design, blueprints, installation, maintenance tips, and a whole lot more. In these uncertain times, you want the peace of mind of having food security right outside your front door. They plan on growing food forest in every community, providing healthier food free from the supply chain. To learn more, visit foodforestabundance.com. Use the code FOOD22 and save 5%. foodforestabundance.com.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.